My name is Katie Yamasaki. I am a painter, a muralist. I do children's book illustration, and I'm a teaching artist. My project is called Pintando Postales, painting postcards, and it is the second part of a project that I started in 2006. In 2006, I went to Cuba, to Santiago de Cuba, and I participated in a mural conference, an international mural conference, with muralists from different parts of the world. Everybody came from South America, North and South America, Europe, throughout the Caribbean, and everybody, for the first week or so, everybody kind of shared the work that they were doing in their parts of the world. And then for the rest of the project, we did collaborative murals. And then when I was there, some of the artists invited me to do an exhibit, and it was kind of like totally different to get an exhibit in Cuba. They just said one day we're working on the mural, and they said, "Hey, you should have a show down here." So I'm like, that would be great, you know, thinking about like how hard it is to get a show in New York. And they said, "Well, do you have your book?" "Yeah." So we go, they're like, "Okay, let's go." So we go with our mural gear on, which is like, you know, covered in paint and sweat and dust, head to toe. And we just go to the gallery, and the director of the gallery is there, and she is like, "Oh, let me see your work." She flips through it. She's like, "This is great." You know, she flips through her calendar. She's like, "Okay, how's April 2007? Okay. When I came back to New York, I teach 4th through 8th grade at Ballet Tech, which is the New York City public school for dance, and I've been there this is my 7th year there right now. So I have all the kids beginning from 4th grade through 8th grade in art class once or twice a week. And when I got back from Cuba, they had a guest art teacher for the time I was gone, and they were really curious about what it was like in Cuba. A lot of them have relatives from the Caribbean and all throughout Latin America, or they're from Latin America or the Caribbean themselves. And so they were really wondering, you know, how is Cuba? What are the kids like? And you know, what was it like?
My name is Sydney, and I'm 13, and I'm in the 7th grade.
And Sydney, did you know anything about Cuba before we did this project?
Not much. I just knew it was like a third world country, and it was very poor, and that's something we'll say about it.
Sydney, one of my students, she wrote about the snow. She wrote about Times Square, how much she loves Times Square. A lot of the kids wrote about Times Square. And she wanted to kind of communicate just like something that she knew would be really different than what life was like in Cuba. And so her response postcard came from a girl named Susanna, and Susanna wrote how much she would love to see the snow and how much she would love to have Sydney come to visit her in Cuba. So I kind of, in the Cuban painting, put a snow scene and then made the two girls these figures that were able to kind of like engage and play in that world. Gabby wrote about, her postcard was very short. She wrote, she's from the Dominican Republic, and she doesn't like to say a lot of words, but what she does like to say is peace, so peace, and she was like this. And the photo that I took of her that I used in when I made the painting was her graduation day picture, and she had on this pink gown, and she was very beautiful with her hair down, and her painting was perhaps one of the most popular paintings among the Cuban girls because she looked like a princess, you know, and so many Cuban girls wrote back to her. The postcard and the child that I chose to paint it, her name is Carla, and she comes from a family of artists. Her mother does art with fabric, where she makes these large images that have a lot to do with Cuban religion and the orishas and all of these different legends with different gods and goddesses. And So that kind of like stitched element in the background of her painting has to do with her mother's art that she's surrounded by. And then her father's also a sculptor, a very kind of celebrated sculptor in Santiago and in Cuba. He's exhibited in different parts of the world. And so his sculpture is also included there. She's very much a creative spirit, and it was kind of to show her, how she's surrounded by all of this artwork in her everyday life.
En su dibujo, igual que yo, representa la paz. Y yo quería decir que también pinta muy bonito. Y yo me llamo Carla.
¿Y qué tú piensas del diálogo que ella está tratando de establecer a través de su pintura y de las tarjetas entre los niños de Nueva York y los niños de Santiago de Cuba?
Bueno, ya hablaba de eso. Es un intercambio bellísimo. Yo pensé, ella me dijo hacer esa exposición, yo digo, va a ser difícil hacer tantas obras en un año. O sea, tenía un año para hacer todo y realmente trabaja mucho. Ella se comunicaba conmigo y me decía, pues, obra cada 15 días. Retrató a los niños, aunque ella trabaja. O sea, cada 15 días hacía un retrato de uno de esos niños con todos sus gustos, sus sueños, sus preferencias, y ahí está la obra. Y la obra que hace con esos niños también, enseñándolo a que ese sea el futuro de la humanidad, que sea el futuro del arte, de la cultura, del bienestar, del progreso y no de la guerra.
What my biggest dream would be if somebody saw this project and they said, you know what, I want to make an organization that does international exchanges with the arts and with writing for kids. And probably an organization like that exists. And I know that there are teachers who do these kinds of exchanges. I haven't been able to manifest this as much as I would like. It's kind of like there are so many hours in the day, and I end up spending like 12 or 13 of them working on the paintings, you know, and but I would love to be able, I think that there's real value in having kids communicate and foster dialogue internationally. You know, kids have a lot to say, and adolescence is a really good time for them to be opened up to the world so that they can understand their role in participating in it. And, you know, I think the best thing that you can provide a kid is freedom, but not freedom like God bless America freedom, but like freedom like to really have a lot of exposure and have a lot of choice. Because if all you feel is free to choose within the system that's been housing you this whole time, you know, the system that we all kind of like have grown up in, then that's really limiting. You know, I think that the idea is not to just replicate everything that's been provided so far, but to just be able to be opened up in a new way to experience the world on your own terms. So the more exposure kids have to connecting with people in different countries, or to just know that their voice is very important, and to know that what they have to say people are interested in hearing, that will hopefully provide them with some amount of like emotional and social mobility to be like, the world is open to me.